Class, in this video, we cover Rule 4 on the basic rules of anti-differentiation, the sum and difference rule for indefinite integrals at the bottom of page 71 of your note packet. So in the rectangle in the middle of the page for Rule 4, this is the rule. You can fill in the rectangle. If we have a sum and difference, sum or difference of two functions, f of x and g of x, right? We have f of x plus or minus g of x. The antiderivative of that sum or difference is equal to the antiderivative of the first function plus or minus the antiderivative of the second function. And so what this rule enables us to do is if we have a function with multiple terms in it, we can find the antiderivative of that function term by term. So in the first example, in example 1, we got to find the antiderivative of 4 times x to the fourth plus 2x squared. And what the rule number 4 says, the antiderivative of this function is equal to the antiderivative of the first term, 4x to the fourth, plus the antiderivative of the second term, 2x squared. Now, at this stage, I'm going to start doing multiple steps at once, okay? We've broken down things into baby steps in the previous rules, but now I'm going to start doing multiple steps at once. So the antiderivative of 4 times x to the fourth, right? 4 is a multiplicative constant. We bring it out front of the integral sign, and then we find the antiderivative of x to the fourth, which is x to the fifth divided by 5. And so the antiderivative of 4 times x to the fourth is 4 times x to the fifth over 5, which simplifies to 4/5 times x to the fifth. The antiderivative 2x squared, right? Again, I can bring the 2 out front of the integral sign. And the antiderivative of x squared is x cubed over 3. And 2 times x cubed over 3 is equal to 2/3 times x cubed. And then after we find the antiderivative of each of these terms, then we add the arbitrary constant c at the end. We don't add the constant c until we're all done anti-differentiating. In example 2, we got to find the antiderivative of x cubed plus 4x minus 7. So we can find the antiderivative, right, of this function term by term. This is equal to the antiderivative of x cubed plus the antiderivative of 4x minus the antiderivative of 7. Well, the antiderivative of x cubed is 1/4 x to the fourth, right? You add 1 to the exponent, divide by the new exponent, right? So new exponent's 4, so we have 1/4 times x to the fourth is the antiderivative of x cubed. Antiderivative of 4 times x is 4 times x squared over 2. And the antiderivative of minus 7 is minus 7x, right? This is a constant. And then we add our arbitrary constant c at the very end, after we're all done anti-differentiating. Well, 4 over 2 simplifies to 2. And so this simplifies to 1/4 times x to the fourth plus 2x squared minus 7x plus c. So the antiderivative of x cubed plus 4x minus 7, anti-differentiating term by term, is this in the rectangle right here. All right, class, we are continuing with the examples at the top of page 72 for rule number 4. So at the top of page 72 is example 3. And we have to find the antiderivative of x plus 1 times x minus 3. Well, before we do that, right, we got to carry out this multiplication. So we're going to FOIL. And when we FOIL x plus 1 times x minus 3, we get x squared minus 2x minus 3. And now we can find the antiderivative of x squared minus 2x minus 3 using rule number 4, okay, that we're learning here. So we can find the antiderivative of this function by anti-differentiating it term by term. The antiderivative of x squared is 1/3 x cubed. The antiderivative of minus 2x is minus x squared. And the antiderivative of the constant minus 3 is minus 3x. And now we add the arbitrary constant c at the end, okay? So antiderivative x plus 1 times x minus 3 is equal to 1/3 x cubed minus x squared minus 3x plus c. And example 4 at the top of page 72, we got to find the antiderivative of x squared minus 3x over x. Well, before we can find the antiderivative, we got to do a little work. This is a difference, right, in the numerator. So this quotient or fraction can be rewritten as x squared divided by x minus 3x divided by x, right? You have to divide each of those terms in the numerator by x. Well, x squared divided by x is just x, and minus 3x over x is equal to minus 3. And so we're just finding the antiderivative of x minus 3. And the antiderivative of x is 1/2 x squared. The antiderivative of minus 3 is minus 3x. And then we add the arbitrary constant c. So the antiderivative of x squared minus 3x over x turns out to be 1/2 x squared minus 3x plus c.